If you were a child in the early 2000s, chances are you watched the iconic Ella Enchanted featuring Anne Hathaway. The movie came out in 2004 and was based on the novel by Gail Carson Levine of the same name. Ella Enchanted tells the story of Ella of Frel, who upon birth was given the gift of obedience by the fairy Lucinda. That meant she had to follow any order that was given to her.
Bite me! Did you see what Ella?
Her mother died when she was still young, and on her deathbed, she commanded Ella to never tell a soul about the curse, including her father, which she had to obey.
What's inside you is stronger than any spell.
When she gets older, her father is forced to remarry for money, and with that came two evil stepsisters, Hattie and Olive. Hattie eventually discovers Ella's forced obedience through observation and uses it against her. She eventually forces Ella to use it against her friend, Arita, and that becomes Ella's last straw and pushes her to go on an adventure to find Lucinda and make her take her gift back. Throughout her journey, she meets giants, elves, and ogres, falls in love with the prince, and eventually is able to release herself of the curse through her own endeavor. Apart from the beginning and the end, the stories in the book and movie differ in a variety of ways. But before I get into that, let me talk about one of the main reasons why this is a feminist story. For one thing, we finally get a Cinderella story where it makes sense why she is so passive and, dare I say, obedient. This has always been something that is so annoying about the princess story in general, especially in the 2015 live-action adaptation, where it literally did not make sense why Ella in that movie was doing everything her stepmother and stepsisters wanted simply because she was taught to be kind. Like, what? How does that make any sense? If you watch that movie again, you will see just how incredibly sexist it is that she literally does nothing to get out of her situation. She simply accepts it and is only saved when the prince decides he wants to marry her. In Ella Enchanted, however, Ella is forced to be obedient by a curse, which not only explains why she allows her stepsisters to treat her like dirt, but it makes her an incredibly strong character, since she is constantly trying to find ways to defy the curse, even though she knows it is of no use. Now, here are a few things that are different in the book and the movie. In the movie, Prince Charles' parents are dead, and the kingdom is run by his uncle Edgar. The prince is about to become king, but he has spent years away, so he knows very little about the kingdom, including the enslavement of ogres and elves, which was done by his uncle. He meets Ella by chance, while running away from a crowd of his adoring fans. In the book, however, there is no evil uncle, and Ella has known Prince Char since her mother's death, and they have grown to be friends. I would argue that the love story in the book is stronger because of the fact its foundation was friendship, but in both the book and the movie, the prince becomes interested in her mostly because of her view of the world and her intelligence. He becomes extremely interested in what she has to teach him. And it's crazy how uncommon this is in the fairy tale genre in general, that the prince likes her for her mind rather than her beauty. But this is something Ella Enchanted does really well, and it's an important message to teach young girls. The only thing that bothers me in this movie is that it literally uses the "I'm not like other girls" trope, since she doesn't fawn over him like other girls in the kingdom do. And when I say they use this trope, I mean literally.
Ella of Frau, you are not like other girls.
No idea.
And he saves her not once, but twice.
Let her go!
This is one aspect of the movie that I don't like. I am not sure why the writers thought it was necessary to have him save her so many times when that never happens in the book. What makes me even more mad is that the ogre encounter was in the book, but she was able to get out of it completely on her own, using her knowledge of languages. So it's really disappointing that he comes out of nowhere and saves the day, and none of the situations she is in throughout the movie demonstrates her getting out of it through outsmarting the enemy, which I would have really appreciated. What I like about both versions is that the prince never commands her to do anything, and when he does, he rephrases himself because he never wants her to do something she doesn't want to do, even though he has no idea about the curse. It demonstrates that there is a partnership in their relationship, which is really important to show young girls. Another part that solely happens in the movie is her encounter with Slannon, an elf who is in danger. She is able to save him, and then he decides to accompany her on her journey. She helps him at first by trying to outsmart the two men and delivers this iconic line.
Look, I think it's only fair to warn you that I'm practiced in the ancient art of origami.
Paper folding?
Oh, I was hoping you wouldn't know what that was.
But her intelligence isn't what saves him or her in the end. Instead, Slanin then uses her gift unknowingly.
Rabbit punch!
However, what I really liked about the addition of Slanin in this movie is that in this world, all the elves are meant to become entertainers, but he wants to become a lawyer, and he wants to petition the king to do so. I personally really like this aspect of the movie, not only because of the fact she saved the man for once instead of being saved, but also because Slanin was an example of wanting to go against a stereotype or expectation that you might be born into, which I think is a great message. In the movie, Ella also goes on to save the prince in the end from his evil uncle who was trying to kill him and take the crown for himself. Unfortunately, this is not something you see a lot in movies today. It's always the girl being saved by the prince, not the other way around. So it's really great to see Ella save the day and the kingdom in the end, even though it didn't happen in the books. This was also after she had figured out how to save him from herself, after his uncle figured out he could order Ella to kill him for her. This leads me to my main point as to why Ella is a feminist icon. Her entire journey is to find Lucinda and get rid of the curse, basically to better herself by finally stopping other people from taking advantage of her. She eventually does find Lucinda and begs her to get rid of it because it was going to force her to do something awful, aka kill the prince. But Lucinda doesn't recognize the fact that her gift has negative effects and is even insulted that Ella has asked her to do so. She then helps her get to the ball, thinking she's helping her because she doesn't want to listen to her. An interesting idea about the juxtaposition of Lucinda and Ella is pointed out by an article on Bustle, where it states that while Ella represents oppressed women, the fairy Lucinda actually represents all the privileged women who can't see past their own life to recognize the fact that not all women are treated the same. And even though I have to admit that I really like what they did in the movie, where Ella stops herself from stabbing him even though his uncle commanded her to do so, the book version is a lot more powerful. In the book, when Prince Char asks her to marry him, others like her stepmother command her to accept, and she knows a spell will make her do so, but she fights against it because even though she does want to marry him, she knows that if she becomes princess and one day queen, people will find a way to take advantage of her gift and hurt him and the kingdom. I think the book version was a lot more well done because it emphasized her selflessness and awareness of the gift's effect on others more so than her. She was willing to sacrifice her happiness for the protection of others. Overall, however, what's important about the storyline in both the book and the movie is that Ella is focused on achieving a specific goal for herself, which is trying to get rid of her gift, and the prince storyline actually becomes a subplot. Her real journey was regaining control of her actions and her life, and the prince just happens to become an added bonus on her journey. The prince doesn't save her, she saves herself, and more fairy tales need to show female characters doing that. So, overall, Ella is a feminist icon because she is intelligent, strong, and courageous above all else. She is kind and selfless, like other Cinderella retellings show her to be, but she does not wait around for others to save her. She becomes her own savior. And while I do think that the movie version does a decently good job at getting the story across, the book does it better. I do want to mention, however, that I really like the added benefits of the movie, such as the world it creates, with a mixture of modern and medieval elements, which was undoubtedly inspired by the success of Shrek that came out 3 years before. And there are also iconic lines that always get a laugh out of me.
Olive, have you noticed anything strange about Ella? No, not really. Have you noticed it gets darker at night, then lighter when the sun comes up?
That's because of Ella!
Never mind.
The songs are also probably completely unnecessary, but so much fun. And you can't forget the fashion inspiration this movie has brought. So either way, the book and the movie both successfully show the strong, powerful feminist icon that is Ella. And I hope one day they adapt to screen the author's second book, which is set in the same world as Enchanted. It's the retelling of Snow White, and it tells a story about self-acceptance and that beauty is not everything. Like and subscribe if you want to see more, and let me know down in the comments what you thought about what I had to say about this movie. Also let me know if this video inspired you to go rewatch it for the billionth time.